Hi, and welcome to this episode of Learn Everyday English, where we use words, phrases, and real-life situations to help you, learn and improve your English. So today we're going to be talking about contractions. And contractions are words that have been shortened by dropping one or more letters. And when we write contractions, an apostrophe, that's a symbol that we place above a word, is used to indicate the place of the missing letters. And we'll go over that in more detail. But the word contract, or to contract, means to decrease in size or number or to get smaller. So that's why these words are called contractions. So if you like these videos that we produce and come out with, please, hit the like button to subscribe, hit the bell for notifications, and also tell your friends about it so they can benefit and learn more to improve their English. So basically there are a lot of contractions in English, but I'm going to focus on just a few contractions using question words. And I'm going to use 6 question words. So it's who, what, when, where, why, and how. Who, what, when, where, why, and how. And basically I'm going to focus on using these words with 3 other words, and these 3 other words are is, has, and does. Is, has, and does. So for example, who is, or who has, or who does. And it will be the same for each other word, like what is, what has, what does. How we can form contractions out of these 6 main words, along with these other, maybe other words like is, has, or does. So for example, the word who, instead of saying who is, we just say whose. So whose is W-H-O apostrophe S. W-H-O apostrophe S means who is. And don't confuse this with the word whose, which is like a form of possession, which is spelled W-H-O-S-E, whose, but they sound the same. So for example, and these are used in questions, I can ask, who is going? Who is going? But instead of saying who is going in English, we say, who's going? Who's going? And remember, in English also, when we have a word ending in G, a lot of times we'll drop the G and won't pronounce the G, so we'll just say, who's going? Who's going? The next example is, instead of using who and the word has. So the question is, who has seen the movie? Who has seen the movie? But instead of saying that, we'll say, who's seen the movie? Who's seen the movie? The third example is, or question is, who does he like best? Who does he like best? So we'll change that and we'll say, who's he like best? Who's he like best? So these contractions are very, very, very common, and we use these all the time. So it is helpful that you get used to hearing these contractions. But the word whose, like I mentioned earlier, can also be spelled differently, and it's a word of possession, like whose car is that? That means who does that car belong to? That's whose, W-H-O-S-E, whose. So make sure you don't get those two words mixed up. The next section has to do with the word what. So instead of saying what is, we'll say what's. What's. So for example, the question could be, hey, what is his name? What is his name? Instead of saying that, we'll say, what's his name? What's his name? And using the word what with has, the question could be, what has he done? What has he done? So instead we'll say, what's he done? What's he done? What's he done? In the third example, the question is, what does it mean? What does it mean? So in English we'll shorten that and say, what's it mean? What's it mean? So you see, like the three words, what's it mean, also seems like it becomes one word that's, we say, pushed together. What's it mean? What's it mean? We don't say, what's it mean? No, we say, what's it mean? The third word is when, so the same type of thing happens. Instead of saying when is, we'll say wins. Wins. But don't confuse this with the, there's a word that also sounds like wins. It's W-I-N-S. And that means like to win a game. Or the team wins a game, but that's spelled differently, but it sounds exactly the same. So an example question for when is, when is he coming? When is he coming? But in English we'll a lot of times say, when's he coming? When's he coming? Second example is, when has he ever helped you? When has he ever helped you? And we'll say, when's he ever helped you? When's he ever helped you? And the third form is, when does he get here? When does he get here? And we'll say, when's he get here? When's he get here? So hopefully you can see how we change the form of words and put them together to form contractions. But also I use an example sentence with the word wins, W-I-N-S. The baseball team has 50 wins this season. The baseball team has 50 wins this season. And before I forget, I'm going to have these example sentences in the description below so that you can read these and follow along with the video, or maybe print them out so you can have to review later at a later date. The next word is where. So instead of saying where is, we say where's. Where's. Again, don't confuse this with the word wears, like W-E-A-R-S, which means when somebody wears clothing or wears shoes. That's spelled differently. But where is wears, W-H-E-R-E apostrophe S. So the first question is, where is he at? Hey, where is he at? Maybe I can't find him. In English we'll say, where is he at? Where is he at? The second example with has is, hey, where has he gone? Where has he gone? I don't see him. And instead we'll say, where is he gone? Where is he gone? The third example is, where does he work at? Where does he work at? And instead we'll say, hey, where does he work at? Where does he work at? So now I'm going to use an example sentence with the word wears, as in wearing clothing. He wears blue jeans every day. He wears blue jeans every day. Number 5 is the word why, W-H-Y. So instead of saying why is, we say wise, wise. And again, don't confuse this with another word that sounds the same, and it's spelled W-I-S-E, pronounced wise. So wise is somebody that's very smart, is wise. But when we say why is, W-H-Y, then an I-S, why is, question is, could be, why is he crying? Why is he crying? So in English we'll say, why is he crying? Why is he crying? The second example is, why has he been crying? Hey, why has he been crying? Why has he been crying? And instead we'll say, why has he been crying? Why has he been crying? I don't understand. Why? And using the word why with does, a question can be, why does the sun set in the west? Why does the sun set in the west? That means, why does the sun go down in the west? And instead we'll say, why is the sun set in the west? Why is the sun set in the west? So that's the word why, and contractions with why. But I use the word wise, W-I-S-E, like smart in this sentence. His father was a very wise man. His father was a very wise man. And the last word is how. How. And instead of saying how is, we'll say hows. Hows. So for example, I can ask somebody, or somebody can ask me, hey, how is it going? How is it going? But in English, we'll more commonly say, how's it going? How's it going? But remember, we can also drop the G on going, so a lot of times you'll hear, how's it going? Hey, how's it going, John? Or how are you doing? Doing. But this is how. How's it going? The word how with the word has as a contraction. How has that happened? How has that happened? And instead we'll say, how's that happened? How's that happened? And finally, the word how and the word does. A question can be, hey, how does that work? How does that work? I don't understand that. How does that work? But instead, in English, a lot of times we'll say, how's that work? How's that work? But one other thing I want to point out is hows. There's another word that doesn't sound exactly the same, but it's very similar, is the word house. House is what you live in, is a house, but notice the difference. House has a s sound, house. But hows, how is, and the contraction house has a z sound. So just listen to the difference. House, house, and house. House, house. House, house. So I'll use house in a sentence. His house is very big. His house is very big. So these are very common contractions in English. Like I indicated earlier, there are very, very many contractions in English. But these are some that are very common, and you'll hear these all the time. Especially in spoken English, and a lot of times in spoken informal English. So I said, tune your ear so you can hear, and hopefully this will be helpful. And again, I'll have these sample sentences down in the description below. So again, if you like this video or these types of videos, please 1, hit the like button, 2, subscribe, 3, hit the bell for notifications, and 4, tell your friends about it. So that's it for today. And thank you for watching this episode of Learn Everyday English. And until next time, we'll see you later. Hey, bye-bye.